What's going on, everybody? In this video today, I'm going to go over some cryptos that I'm watching. I'm going to show you what's going on their charts. And I think it's a great time to look at some of these cryptos as we get closer to the halving. I'm going to show you some resistance levels to watch for, some potential entry points, and I'm just going to talk about some of these cryptos that I see potential in. Now, if you guys have any recommendations, leave them down below. And first off, let's see how Bitcoin's doing. Bitcoin is still near its yearly high, and the RSI is cooling down. We're under 1,500 away from being at 45,000, and if we can get into the 45,000s, I do think we're going to continue to run from there. The RSI definitely has some room now ever since it's been consolidating, and as I've mentioned before, I am watching this ascending green line here. So far it's been utilizing it as a support, but if we see a pullback and a break of this green ascending line, I do think we can experience a drawdown towards about 41,000, maybe 40,000, at which point I'd definitely be looking to add some Bitcoin. Any pullbacks while we approach the halving are buying opportunities, and despite Bitcoin's run up over the last couple of months, I do think it's still got a lot of gains to be had here. And if you're looking into getting into crypto, getting into altcoins and stuff like that, I do suggest starting with Bitcoin, and while it is quite volatile, it'll be less volatile than a lot of these altcoins, a lot of more higher risk cryptos, and it'll give your crypto portfolio a little bit more stability. Bitcoin's still looking bullish, facing an ascending 50 and 200 MA, of which it is above. And one potential point to watch for is a pullback to the 50 MA, which right now is sitting a little bit under 40,000. And because they're lagging indicators, if we do get a drawdown over the next couple days, a push down towards 40,000, the 50 MA will essentially be right around 40,000 by then if we do start pulling back. I do think even here Bitcoin's a solid DCA, and it is worth continuing to build up as we get into 2024 and 2025. Now we'll get into a little higher risk cryptos as we move along, but I also want to talk about Ethereum. And Ethereum has a great burning mechanic ever since its merge. And overall, there is a net drop in Ethereum's circulating supply. $2.5 billion worth of Ethereum has been burned, and right now supply is at an 18-month low. And while new Ethereum is issued, the Ethereum that is being burnt is outweighing the new issuance of Ethereum. Overall, Ethereum's supply has declined by 309,000 ETH, or about $686 million, whereas about 1.2 million ETH has been burned, or 2.65 billion, while 1.96 billion or 885,000 Ethereum has been issued. So overall, Ethereum is seeing a net decline in its circulating supply, which is amazing compared to some cryptos that still have a lot of supply left to be issued. Now I want to show you guys a very long-term trend, an ascending support line basically, and it's been maintaining it since 2020, believe it or not. You can see this yellow line here across the screen that's basically been started since March of 2020, and it's maintained itself above this level. And I do think over time, you know, as we push on, as we eventually get to the next crypto winter, I do think this yellow support line will be maintained, and by next crypto winter, this yellow support line will be somewhere around 3,000 or so, which I do think could potentially be the next cycle low for Ethereum. And that is currently much higher than its current price. Zooming in a bit, you'll see Ethereum did see a golden cross back in late November. It's been continuing higher, and it does look like it's bouncing off its 50 MA. Its RSI has cooled down a bit after its recent run up here, and I do think now's a great time to be adding to Ethereum. It's also riding over the 3 EMAs. They're in a bullish order, and if we pull back, you want to see how it maintains support at the 50 EMA and at the 50 MA. But I do think Ethereum's looking really good right now. One thing to watch out for is this ascending support level that we've been riding on since the end of October. And if we do see a break of it, we'll probably see a test of the EMAs or the moving averages. But overall, I do think any pullbacks for Ethereum are also great buying opportunities. And Ethereum is something that I personally wouldn't have a mental stop loss for. It's something that I would want to build up over time, as I do expect it to do very well in the halving. And compared to a lot of other cryptos, this one is actually lowering its circulating supply. I also want to talk about Cardano, and then I'm going to talk about a meme coin that I do have a very small position in, and I am going to be slowly scaling into it over the next couple weeks to couple months. But looking at Cardano, it's had a huge move. It was just hovering around in the 20-cent area for so long, it seems. This was just so much sideways action over the last couple months, clear accumulation phase, and on our breakout of about 46 cents, this went on an absolute tear. I do think if we get to the psychological 50-cent level and break it, it could draw down further. And as for the upside, if we can push 70 cents, I do think Cardano can try to reach $1. This 70 cents is our resistance zone. Very recently, as we became overbought, started selling off a bit. Now we're seeing some consolidation, but it was also a resistance during the bear market on our way down. We found 70 cents as well as the 50 MA as a resistance and continued pushing downwards. I do think a break of 70 cents for Ethereum I do think a break of 70 cents for Cardano will cause an accelerated move, probably to $1. Keep in mind, this is quite a ways away from its 50 and 200 MA. We might need to see a little retracement, a test of the 50 MA, which could be somewhere in the 40 to 50 cent range by the time we get there. If Bitcoin draws down to 40,000, I think Cardano can have a nice little sell-off and a great chance to buy. Whereas if Bitcoin breaks 45,000, continues higher, once Cardano breaks 70, I think that would be a great short-term entry point. But overall, I'm bullish on Cardano. I expect it to be much higher in 2024 and 2025. And I do think it's going to continue to have these surprising moves seemingly out of nowhere. It saw its golden cross back in November, and I suspect a lot of these cryptos, as well as some of these Bitcoin miners, they won't see a death cross until we get into 2025, until we get into the bear market. This is basically what we saw in the last cycle, where we saw these golden crosses before the halving, and that was the final golden cross for like 2 years. Just a continued upward move throughout 2020 and 2021. I do think we're going to see that in 2024 and 2025 until it's time to close up shop somewhere in late 2025 before the next bear market, when we get back to the time to start buying in anticipation of the next halving. I may be getting ahead of myself, but let me know if you guys also are looking ahead like that too. And let me know if you guys have sell points for these cryptos or for any of the Bitcoin miners. Is it a price based or is it a timing based sell point? For me, I do plan to sell a lot of the Bitcoin miners, a lot of the cryptos towards the last half of 2025, and I do think it's worth holding at least until mid to late 2025. Last cycle, our peak was in 2021 towards the end, and I do suspect we're going to see something similar. Maybe we see the peak 1 month earlier because we are seeing these run-ups 1 month earlier compared to the other halving. And I'll try to show you guys more details about that in the future. But I do think since this halving, we are kind of seeing a little bit of an earlier run than last time, maybe because of 2020 and the March V-shaped recovery. But I do think there's potential that we see the bear market start a month earlier. And as we get into these halvings, it's going to be people getting in earlier in anticipation and people getting out earlier in anticipation of crypto winter, as more and more people understand how crypto works around the 4-year cycle. All right, now I got a meme coin for you, Bonk. I did start a small position in this, and I'm going to be slowly scaling in. I want to see how it does at this 17 level. If we break that, I think it's very likely we get to this 15 level. The moving averages and MAs are still pointing upwards, and I do suspect we need to see a bounce soon, otherwise they're going to start looking more bearish. And despite Bonk's crazy run up, I do think there are more gains to be had here when we get to the right points in the cycle. It's still a relatively small cap. I do think small amounts of money can drastically move this. And once we get through this profit-taking cycle, I do think it's going to see a resurgence. But keep in mind, this is high risk. Don't go all in on this. To me, it's meant more as a lottery play. Throw 20 bucks here and there at it and just see if that small amount of money can give you an insane return. I do think it's possible that we continue to draw down a bit, so exercise caution, be patient. But as I just said, I did start a little position, and I'm slowly going to scale in as we watch these levels and see how they play out. All right, now I also want to talk about Litecoin, and while this one hasn't really been doing much recently, I do like its tokenomics. Its circulating supply for the majority is already out there. Litecoin, just like Bitcoin, does have halving cycles, and it had its halving a couple of months ago. However, just like previous halvings, this was a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event, unlike Bitcoin. And after its halving, we did see a bit of a sell-off. And before getting into the chart, one thing to consider is people are looking for the cryptos that are moving. Typically, ones that aren't doing much, people are just going to pass up and not pay attention to. So there's something to be said about that. However, I do think Litecoin will be a good one to get into. It's not going to give you a crazy like 10-20x. So I do think at this point the risk is somewhat low, and it's still got a decent reward. One thing I'm watching for is this ascending channel we're in. If we see a break, we may retrace down, test around 65 as a support, then come down, test around 60 cents as a support. But something interesting is Litecoin bottomed out back in June of 2022. And overall, it has been trending higher. There have been pullbacks along the way, but I do suspect we're not going to see that low level again. To me, worst case for Litecoin, we're going to see maybe 50s, 60s, and that's if we see a pullback on Bitcoin, maybe down into the high 30s. But really keep an eye on this ascending channel. It does play out its patterns typically to a T. You'll see that on our long journey from the bottom, we finally broke this level of support. We bounced back in it and utilized it as a support again, only to later on break down from it, attempt to create a new level, break down from that as well. Now we're in this ascending channel. I do think now's an important time to watch Litecoin. Keep an eye on the moving averages. The 200 is still pointing down, but the red or the 50 MA is pointing up. If we see a bounce on this ascending channel and a breakout over the 200 MA, there's a very good potential that we see these cross, but we do need to see some positive price action first. I do think Litecoin's a pretty solid one. Yes, it's slept on by a lot of people, And that does suck when it's all about getting into the hype, getting into what's moving up. But I want to say, don't count Litecoin out yet. I do think it's bottomed out, and I do think it will appreciate in price. And I do think as we gain more mainstream adoption, more Wall Street adoption, Litecoin will be one that people try to get into, especially when the chart looks more bullish, if we can get above these moving averages and see our golden cross, which we haven't seen yet. But let me know what you guys think. What cryptos are you getting into? It's definitely an interesting day for the Bitcoin miners. We have Sphere 3D, for example, down, a great chance, in my opinion, to buy. And then we have Iris Energy. When I was looking at it, it was up like 30%. Any of you that have over 100 shares, I think now's a great time to do some covered calls. But let me know what you're doing out there in the market. What cryptos are you buying? What Bitcoin miners are you buying? What stocks in general are you buying? Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.